5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good day, goodbye, or whatever you're doing, wherever you are in the world. How are you doing? Hopefully better than Leicester's performance on Saturday. It is the review show. It's not with the usual host, Chris. He's busy doing some after hours office work. I'm sure he's having a wonderful time. I believe he's meeting up with our beloved Jim from across the pond. He's not gone to America. Jim's over here. And I think we're having a gathering. So unfortunately, this ugly mug is your host. How are you feeling? Have you recovered from the shock defeat? Well, I say shock defeat. It was very inevitable with the way we played. The guest from the preview show, if you don't know who it is, this is the first time seeing him, and go and check it out after the show. Ollie is a very, very happy Preston fan. Are you sure we have to bring him in? Yeah, I know it's a review show. Yeah, I know I said I'd do this show for Chris. Yeah, I know, but he's going to be really smug. I know he's a nice lad. Fine. Okay, guys. I can't fend it off anymore. We have got Ollie, who's back for the review show. Oh, should we get into it then, folks? Let's introduce him. Here he is, a very happy Preston. He is the Deepdale Duck of the world. Ollie, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Brad. How are you?
Well, I mean, I'm better now. I can put that defeat behind us for another 4 to 5 games before we play Charlton. How are you? You must be absolutely buzzing because you are the most positive man in Preston, as we know from the preview show. So you must be delighted with this out.
Yeah, pleasantly surprised. Went on to Deepdale, not thinking we'd get away with anything, and then started with a flurry, and then you 1-0 up, and you're thinking, well, it's a bit of a shock to the system. And then I thought, the atmosphere was brilliant. I feel like once the fans are on side at Preston, it becomes a very hard place to, come and visit as an opposition. So, to be fair, I still can't believe it now. Brilliant result. And if you'd told me that we'd have had 4 points after the first 2 games, QPR away and Leicester at home, I'd have told you you're stupid. But here we are. Doing all right.
Yeah, here we are indeed. It was a result that you maybe yourself weren't expecting. But good evening to Blue Fox, who's just popped in on the comment section there. But Leicester fans, well, maybe not all of them, but the wiser ones, shall I say, will probably tell you that after our performance against Sheffield Wednesday, and with everything that's still going on in the background, as well as the toxic fallout from last season as well, that this is sort of what we've become accustomed to. And it's losing first of all. Last season we did it for the lols, really. We just did it for the fun of it, but constantly going 1-0 down. And unlike 2 seasons ago when we were in the Championship, because a few times that season we went 1-0 down, we felt confident enough that we was going to, come back and win the game. Yeah, okay, you took the lead. All right, we'll score 2, maybe 3, and it'll just happen. It was almost, as Thanos would say, it was inevitable. But on Saturday, we're going to talk about the game and how we're going to break it down. But Chris knows I don't like stats because sometimes stats don't tell the full story. They don't show the game as the way they are. And if you look at some of the stats, and I've written a few down here and took a few mental notes of some others here, you would not think Preston completely dominated the majority of that game. And in my opinion, you did dominate that game. I mean, from a from a home support perspective, you've talked about Preston last season. They weren't very good. They like to go on holiday near the end of the season. So you're probably happy. What was it as in control for you as it seemed for us that you were in control of the game, or was there parts where you thought, was there any moments, especially in that first half, which we're going to talk about now? Was there any moments in that first half where you actually thought, here we go, here comes Leicester, this is where they're going to kick on and go? Because I honestly cannot think of any moments where I thought we were starting to turn the screw.
No, there was a couple of moments, obviously, when Leicester were trying to, break and, create something that I was thinking, here, you've got the quality there in the final third to be able to make something out of nothing. And obviously that was in the back of my mind. But obviously, one moment that really stuck out to me in the first half was when Mavididi was, running down the left-hand side and he just got boxed in by 3, Preston players and lost the ball. And it got me thinking. I was like, he's not being supported here by any Leicester players. He's trying to magic something out of nothing and try to beat 3 players who are pressing against him. And as a Preston fan, you can just see, the mentality that, North End have, the fans on the back pushing against them. And in some moments, I kind of resonated with Leicester, like being a bit like Preston were in the latter end of the season, that they're still on the beach. They kind of just looked lackluster and had the same mentality of, like in the Premier League, where you do go 1-0 down and you're thinking, this will be it. They're going to put the game away now. It could be 2-3-0. And I think as players and as management, it's really hard for your manager to come in, obviously, fresh and try to change the mentality from, in the Premier League, you're very unlikely to be able to, get 3 points. You're known to lose the majority of the games. And then you've dropped down to the Championship and just expected to win every game and, bounce back up. And it's a massive mentality shift. I watched Plymouth at the weekend as well. Obviously, they, have gone down again, and they're struggling. Their first 2 games, 3 games, they're really struggling down there. So it will take some time. You're still in a transition period. I can see you've got players that have fantastic qualities. Mavididi, you've got Ayew, who I expect to be scoring a decent amount of goals this season. You've got superb midfield for the Championship in Winks, etc. But it's the mentality that I saw, and it just seemed like when they conceded the first goal, they were just, this again. And then after we scored as well, in the second, it kind of felt like an inevitability in the end up, because there wasn't many moments, obviously, after you scored. There wasn't any real moments for me that I thought, Leicester are going to stick this away and make it 2-1. That it was either going to drown out as a 1-1 or, potentially we'd break and score. And fortunately, that happened. But even after that, I just felt like it was just, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it just felt like a bit of acceptance from Leicester players that it's happening again. I know it's at a league below, but we're used to losing. It just felt a bit. Yeah. It felt strange because obviously you're playing against a big side in Leicester, and you see an acceptance that you've gone 2-1 down by some of the Leicester players. So it was strange, but I do understand. They've got a big mentality change that's needing to happen. And it needs to happen quickly if you want to stand any chance of, getting right back up there.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a feeling. And I'll touch on a few individuals that I'm not too pleased with, and it would be easy to say with certain individuals that have hit the the news headlines and in amongst Leicester fans that's been going around the last few days. It'd be easy to say, oh, you're trying to. The manager's trying to force someone to play because he's a talent, not because he wants to be there or anything like that. But we've got to remember as well that Marty hasn't had a full pre-season. Andy King took over the majority of that pre-season. He was a late arrival in early July, so he's had like 3 weeks to prepare them straight into a game, cup game, and now this one. You've got to implement the way you want to do things. And you can see what he's trying to do. You can see with the way he changed things up in the second half, where I felt we wrestled the momentum for that period, that he's got this plan. But I want to talk formations and lineups just a little bit. You obviously went 5 at the back, and we only had. I know we played like a 4-3-1-2 or whatever it was in a weird way. We played like a weird system. It was all documented like last season as if it was a 4-3-3, but I don't think it was. I think it's got like a transition period where the shape changes. But essentially, we had 2 holding midfielders, a winger, and 2 wingers, and RU up front. First of all, obviously, did you feel that was a factor as how Leicester weren't able to create against Preston? And is the 5 at the back a common thing for Preston, or do you think that was your manager going, this is Leicester, if we let them get at us and leave gaps, they will get confidence and they will score the goals?
I think in terms of individual games, probably that as well. Notably North End, especially in this pre-season and a bit of the end of last season, where we have stuck it to having especially out of possession 5 at the back. The wing backs tuck in. You've got 2 midfielders in Whiteman and McCann who are holding midfielders. So realistically, you're going to have maybe 7 behind the ball. When Leicester are coming. So that's really hard to break down. Even if you're trying to force 4 or 5 players up there and not wanting to get hit on the counter attack, which we saw a couple of times where. Marty's probably sent 6 players to attack against 7, lost the ball. And then, the transition of we've got 2 quick wing backs in Valentine and Small, which can then make it, 5 against 4 going the other way. So realistically, I think it was, well set up by Heckingbottom. But I feel like North End are the type of team that we're nifty, we're gritty, we'll stick in there and we'll try to win the ball high up and quick transitions. Obviously we brought in pace and power this season in Thierry Small and Paul Valentin and a couple of others, but it just felt. Obviously, there's teams that are able to break us down, and once you are able to break us down, and if Leicester went 1-0 up, I'd find it really hard for North End to be able to get back into the game, because I feel like in terms of Preston's plan, it goes out the window if you're 1-0 down. Leicester aren't really going to be wanting to force the issue when they're 1-0 up. They'll probably expect Preston to force the issue. That opens the game up. It's a completely different game. Fortunately, it went the other way. So there's multiple game plans that could have happened. But in terms of obviously the way that we set up, I feel like we'll set up against Ipswich the exact same way next weekend, and then foremost against majority of teams. Because I think North End will probably, bar Sheffield Wednesday, which notably you've just played, you probably played 2 of the least possession teams in the league.
Yes.
So realistically, you've been trying to force the issue, and as I mentioned, it's a mentality change. You've gone from the Premier League where you're not going to have much of the ball. I'm guessing you minimal possession, to then you've got to force the issue. You're going to have about 65-70% possession majority of the games. it's on you to force issue against us. And that's a big change. You know, it's a different style of football. It's a different mentality. And I felt we probably, you know, exposed that change a lot easier than I expected going into the game.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that. And from a Leicester perspective, I feel like even Preston fans could probably pick up on it. Our movement in that first half was so slow, and our indecision making, or our decision to hold on to a ball too long, if you will, especially in that first half, was horrific.
Yeah.
It felt like Preston were going, yeah, these have still got a bit of post-traumatic Premier League disorder, because they're just not confident in the movements. And under Maresca, I know, beat a tired horse on that one, but under Maresca last season, we maybe had that slower pace.
Yeah.
But we were able to kind of have that energy levels, and we were just a bit, when it mattered and where it mattered, we were quicker on the ball. It still feels like we're kind of lethargic energy-wise from the Premier League. I mean, was that something that you noticed? Did you get that feeling of going, hold on a minute, actually, take the name away from it? You know, on paper, Leicester should win this, but realistically, for what I've seen, even before your goal, I know you scored quite early, but what were you thinking? Oh, hold on a minute, these don't look at the races here. I wonder if we can get at them. If we get the first goal, we'll go on to win this. Was that the feeling in and around where you were sat, or?
I mean, realistically, I think because I think we've probably scored in like the 7th or 8th minute. Going into it, the first 5 minutes, it was a bit give and take, because obviously North End had to probably capitalise nice and early like we did. But in terms of it, you know, even when we went 1-0 up, I was probably still waiting just to try and figure out what concept Leicester actually had to bring to the game. And it took probably about 30 minutes before it started to click that, you know, we can probably get something from this game. Leicester really aren't at the races here, unless something drastically changed at half time. You know, I felt we were comfortable. And then obviously the first 10 minutes of the second half, I thought it's all right. And then started getting a bit leggy, and you're starting to think there needs to be a couple of changes here. And then obviously you go and score, and you're thinking, he's made the changes way too late. But, you know, it seemed to work out for us. But yeah, I'd have probably said about 30 minutes where it started to click, thinking, you know what, Leicester, they're not up for it. Or, well, they were up for it, but in terms of, you know, the Leicester that the Championship where you're clinical, you know, you can score 2-3 goals in a matter of 10 minutes. It felt like there wasn't that there. And that obviously, the realism hit me, and I'm like, maybe not 3-1, maybe not. So, yeah, I was gladly shocked to notice after 30 minutes, but I always knew Leicester would have a chance to get back into the game, and then obviously you did.
Yeah. Now, it's funny that you say, you know, Leicester weren't at the races. We talked about this on a preview show. We talked about goalkeepers, and we talked about Leicester losing a Madsen, and did they let one go by letting Iverson go on a free? I don't suppose he had much choice. He obviously wanted to be a first two. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. Now, one of our players did come galloping out the traps. Unfortunately, his trap wasn't lined up, and it was completely the wrong angle, and he forgot where he's going. The other goalkeeper, however, the only time he felt the need to race out of his box, it was cool, calm, and calculated, and he got there ahead of Patson Daka. From a footballing perspective, obviously, from a Leicester perspective, it was one of these. It was oh my God, what have I just witnessed moments? Did it almost like delay the celebration reaction, just seeing it? I mean, what was going through your mind when you just saw our goalkeeper absolutely bombing it out to left back and getting nowhere near the ball? Was that like the first?
Well, when he first started coming out, I was thinking, he's going to sweep this up, because I'd never expect, because where you know, behind the North End goal, you see him coming out, and you're thinking, he must have, you know, guaranteed the trajectory of the ball here. Divine's not going to get to the ball. The keeper's going to end up clearing us out. He got closer and closer, and I'm thinking, he's not making this. He's not making this. And the second North End player got a touch, and I was thinking, put the ball in the box. And then, he's just whipped it as hard as he can and just got the accuracy right. But I couldn't believe the only time I see, because you don't see it often, especially because you're so far away, you're thinking, the keeper at a championship level, he's probably guaranteed to know the trajectory of the ball and ensure that he's there to be able to either sweep up or, stay put. So it was a bit of a shock when I saw Divine actually rounded the keeper. I thought it would have been, put into Rose head of the Invincibles by your goalie, but clearly he decided to come out when he weren't going to get the ball.
Yeah, I may have stated the fact that he channeled in his inner Danny Ward. Now, Leicester fans will know more about that as I did. Although, if you saw his performance for Wrexham against West Brom, when he stood at his near post and gets beat his near post, you can see why I thought he'd been possessed by Danny Ward. I'm going to quickly go through stats because I don't really like stats because they don't always tell the tale. I know sometimes they can really tell the tale. They kind of matches up, but this one didn't do it. Leicester won a lot of the stats in terms of tackles, free kicks, and all sorts of that. There was a few interesting ones for me. Now, one that you've already mentioned by not being a possession team, this one won't surprise you. Possession stat was Preston North End 39.7%, Leicester City 60.3%. That's pretty much how it did feel to the points. You were obviously more clinical in that 39.7% than we were in the 60.3%. What interests me, and this is what I mean, watching that game throughout its entirety in the 90 minutes, I would say for 20 minutes we were on top. That's when we made the substitutes in the second half. We had a bit of momentum, a bit of flair, a bit of energy, and we got the goal. After that, I think we overcommitted, you got the goal, and then that was the game dead. For both teams, you'd won the game, we gave up, and it didn't know what was going on. Yeah. I don't know if you know this, so you can either pretend to be really smug and clever and know this, and pretend it's a guess, or you might not know this at all. How many shots do you think both teams had?
Both combined?
No, not combined. How many shots do you think you and Leicester had? As in, you had X amount of shots and Leicester had this many shots. How many do you think? Just based off what you saw and how in control it felt that Preston were or seemed.
I think North End probably had about 12 shots, 13 shots. And Leicester, I'm guessing about 8 or 9.
See, you'd think you were quite close, 12, 13 shots for Preston. You actually ended up with 14.
Right.
And I would have had us down at about 6, 7, maybe 8 when we fell pressure. Believe it or not, we both had 14 shots each.
Okay.
And the separating factor doesn't really make for better reading because the shots on target is 4 for yourselves and just 2 for us. So that means after 28 shots for both teams, only 6 were registered on target. We did have another one that hit the post, and obviously that's classed as off target. For me, though, it didn't feel like a game like that because you had so many near half chances to kill us off. I mean, the first half pretty much played out. It played out that way. We didn't get going. We really struggled to break you down defensively. At what point, and we'll go into the end of the first half, sort of, second half-ish, because that's where it sort of carried on into until we made the changes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly say, Andrew Neville was on top. He's a Forest fan. That's from Michael. And Jim says, great show, Brad. Cheers, Jim. He says, who was that former host again? Oh, I don't know. Whoever he is, he can't predict things. He only got 1 point in predictions league. Oh, spoiler alert for that. Someone got 6. Someone got 6. It might have been a 2-time Premier League prediction champion. I don't know. I can't remember. But somebody got 6 points. I'm not saying who. I won't spoil it. So the game kind of played out the first half where you were in control. You definitely have the majority of the chances.
Yeah.
I definitely would say most of our chances came in that period we had. At what point, though, when you were having them gilt-edged chances or half chances at times that could have been better and should have found the back of the net?
Yeah.
At what point did you kind of sit there and feel, oh no, this is going to bite us? Especially when Monga goes and does what he does.
Yeah.
But just before that, when did you start thinking that?
I think every half chance. Realistically, before obviously Monga scores, I thought we could have very easily been 3-0 up at that point. You know, we had 2 real chances. Probably say 2.5 added on to that, where Osmite just crossed the ball just over Small's head, which obviously doesn't count as a shot, but realistically, if that's 2 inches lower and it's on Small's head and he gets it on target, that's 2-0. And then obviously the Smith header, which came agonisingly close to the post in the first half, and then realistically going into the second half, you've got just before Monga scores, the ball comes across and Osmite obviously can't put it into an empty net. He just trickles out for a goal kick. And you're thinking, that could have been 3-0 by now. And then obviously Monga goes up there. I can't even remember who Everson made his spectacular save against, and then it felt like 45 seconds later, Monga stuck it into the back of the net. And then you're like, we should have been 3-0 dead and buried at this point. Then obviously, we go and score, make it 2-1, and probably should have made it 3-1, when Osmite went through 1-on-1. And I think it was Vestergaard who looked like he was running in treacle behind him. We had the opportunities there to, either be 2-3-0 up before, Monga put it in the back of the net, or, after we made it 2-1, we could have easily made it 3-1. So, yeah, stats aren't the be all and end all, as you say. He could have been a much more different game, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, thankfully, not thankfully, but for you, thankfully, in the end, it worked out for you.
Yeah.
Going to talk about the second half now. Obviously, Leicester made them changes. They put not just big changes. One that kind of changed an entire performance from a 0 to like a 4 or 5 at least was Justin, who, in case you didn't know, you might not have known this, right? But he's actually a left back. But for the last 18 months, every manager's playing him at right back. Now, that this season has been because where's Wally? I mean, where's Koulibaly, who's a right back we actually signed in January, has gone AF. He's gone missing. He's MIA. And Ricardo's still injured. I mean, the man's made out of sticky tape and blue tack, bless him. But, it's more understandable this season as to why he is on the right. But Justin got brought over to the left. We brought on Wout Faes for Luke Thomas, which I know some people love to criticise. He is definitely the scapegoat of him. I don't think he had a bad game when he came on. In fact, he was one of the furthest forward people. I think once you're in a rut of hating someone for how bad he's been for the last 3 or 4 seasons, it's easy just to pick up on him. Yeah. But, we brought Monga on, and the game just seemed to kick into life. And for 15, 20 minutes, it did feel like, hold on a minute, Leicester's not back in a sense, but Leicester's going to kick on, and this is where we're going to do what we did to, when we signed in on semi-decent, we won't play them, but Skip on the other hand. Yeah, let's not go down that route, as I'll be here for another 3 hours, and poor Ollie's got a life. Just can we talk about one thing positive for Leicester, just to make you a little bit sad? 16 years of age, made his Premier League debut as 15, decided to ignore offers from elsewhere to commit to Leicester, so his scholarship's going to kick on, and we can at least command a fee for him, when that time comes, because no doubt it will if he keeps going at this rate. I saw a moment where he put his back leg round his standing leg, sort of nutmegged your player, turned him inside out, and I noticed a fan, and I think it might have been you, Ollie, I'm not sure. He had the look of despair on him, and he looked very happy. And I know you're such a positive man, but when you see an opposition fan see a player of that caliber and that talent do that, let there be light. We are both shining at this moment. When he did that with such audacity, a 16-year-old lad did that to a veteran, seasoned footballer who's been around for a few years, and I can see home supporters do that as if to go, "Oh my God, has he just done that?" From a neutral, that goal, them moves, that moment, do you see it as someone who's getting a bit arrogant or cocky, or do you just sit there and just think, "Wow, what a talent he's going to be in years to come if this is how he's going to start"?
Yeah, I'll actually refer it to. It reminded me, and it seems quite a lot like we played Liverpool obviously in pre-season, and their 16-year-old lad Ngumo, I think his name is, where he was turning our play inside out, and it's these young wingers who are obviously wanting to express themselves and make themselves a name realistically, and you can see he's got such raw talent there, and he was exciting. He clearly gets fans off the seats, obviously for the wrong reasons as an opposition fan, but he has everything there to be, a really, really, really top winger. It's just hopefully in terms of the way that football goes sometimes, obviously Pep's coming into football and, he's made his wingers a lot more, indirect rather than trying to create something, trying a bit of skill, trying to knock it past. But it reminds me of the proper old wingers, direct, that want to run at defenders and don't really have a care in the world and just try to excite and create chances. And he's got all that in abundance, and all he probably needs is more game time, and fingers crossed he can get that for you for this season and so forth, because he does look like another really good talent. And is he English?
I believe so. I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure right now
you've got two brilliant, wingers in, the lad at Liverpool, and obviously this lad Monga, because he's had like links to, Atletico Madrid and all that, hasn't he? And he's just chosen to stay at Leicester. So he's probably doing the right thing in terms of game time, but he's got all the ability there to be, a top winger at this level and potentially further on.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you see it, because obviously it's easy for us fans to get excited. Yeah. We've seen him and it's done it, and it's nice to get an opposition fan who sees it as it is and just looks at that performance and goes, "You know what, he really has the potential." As LCFC says it here, he says Monga needs to start ahead of Mavididi to step over Mavididi, the step over and turn back merchant. Mavididi, fair enough, is a player I think suffering from the Ruud Van Nistelrooy effect. He seems to have the confidence drained out of him. Last time out in the Championship, he sort of had that flair to a degree of what Monga was showing. He'd run at you, he'd knock the ball inside, he'd knock the ball in between two centre-backs and still beat them to it, sort of thing. He seems to have lost that. Hopefully Fuentes can get that back into him. But as we're talking about Monga and impressive performances as he had, I'm going to name just a few players that either fans aren't adhered with in terms of wanting them out of the club, or we're seeing lack of effort or suggestion that they don't want to be at the club much longer. And I'm going to ask you a very simple yes or no to a degree question at the end of it. Harry Winks. Looks like his head's gone. I'm going to have a rant about him when you're long gone, so you can cover your ears and not have to listen to me rant away. He just looks like his head's gone. You've got people who are a big fan of Boubacar Samari for being too slow. Mavididi, the obvious with Monga starting there, as Azza said. this Wout phase as well. Vestergaard would treacle. Now, Vestergaard's probably not one of them players that everybody wants out or anything like that. I just feel that we'll talk about the second goal in a little while because we have to, apparently. If you're Leicester, if you're a Leicester fan or someone said, fix the problem that's at Leicester right now, forget the window closing, we want to fix the toxicity, we want to get these. Are you, saying, no, let's stick with the players that are out there. If they put their effort in training, I don't care how they look on the pitch, as long as, because they need to be out there. We can't have too many youngsters. Or are you saying, or would you say, no, sod them lot. I don't care if they're 28, been playing years Premier League experience. I want players on that pitch. All right, it wasn't a great game against Huddersfield, but some of the youngsters that played in that game, and give them the floor for a couple of months to prove their worth. Because not to say that the Championship's a bit of a feeder club to give youngsters a chance, but if you're going to give them a season to go, this is the most risk-free one you can sort of do it in for us, surely. Or is it stick with Winks, stick with them players because they've got a rapport over a few seasons?
I think it's got to be a bit of give and take, really, because you can't just then overload it with youngsters and push, the older heads out and just say, listen, if this is the way it's going to be, because that could just turn into a complete and utter disaster if it turns out to it. But there has to be some say from, obviously your manager, and where that, especially in terms of Monga, where he's come in, he's, shown the liveliness, he's shown the potential. You've got a 16-year-old lad here, Mavididi, knocking on your door to say, I want to prove myself in the Championship. If you don't book your ideas up, I'm taking your spot. And I think that's what's got to happen, maybe integrate more of the youngsters and, some of those that are in the 18 rather than the starting 11, and maybe it'll book the ideas up of, the Harry Winks, so to speak, a couple of others. So I don't think you can totally seclude them, but you have to let them know that, no position in football is secure. North End players have absolute stinkers 9 times out of 10. So realistically, they've got to be interchangeable, and that's the way he's got to think about it. And I feel like, for me as a neutral, and if I was Fuentes, I'd be starting Monga next game, just for the ability that he's shown, and just to show, he's proven it. He's good enough for this level, and he's shown a bit of heart. I'd start him, and I'd be shocked if he didn't. And I'd probably be a bit disappointed if I was Monga and I didn't start. So it's got to be a bit of give and take, and it's got to be one that gives players like, your long-standing players who expect to start, a rocket up the arse, so to speak.
That's a very good take to have. So there you go, Ollie. If you're ever looking for employment, if you give Leicester 6 to 8 months knowing Leicester, there could be a job on the line for you. You'll get Monga and everybody else the best out of it. Until we play Preston, then you'll be dropping in the 16s, of course. Although the way they've been playing recently, that might be lethal to do against you in the reverse fixture. Ed sort of pretty much agrees with you here with what you were saying. He says, I want players that show fight and desire to play for the badge. It's simple as that. Really, in my opinion, that's all fans really want. And to be fair, it's spot on. I know you can't get rid of everybody who doesn't really want to be here. There's still a lot of players that maybe now want the move, but Leicester sort of have the power back in their hands. The whole El Canoes thing, his release clause has ended. And it's kind of like, well, I've heard a lot of rumours that Palace have had a bid rejected, or maybe even 2 bids rejected. And my response there would be, well, they could have had you. And they could have had him for a reasonable price. And I don't understand the mentality of this, and see if you agree with this. You've got a player whose release clause is 25 million in that region. No bids coming for him for 25 million. So you've got no chance to control all the power, because you can do that, pay that release clause, and then we don't have any say in it. He goes, talks to you. If he wants to sign, he's gone, sort of thing. why on earth would you then wait until 2 days after, well, a day and a bit after it's happened, and then bid £5 million less than the release clause, thinking Leicester are going to accept it? Well, is that a strategy that clubs do? Is that something you kind of feel is actually part of the mental part of the game to kind of turn that player's head, or is that just the daftest thing ever? It just doesn't make sense to me why you wouldn't have bid it on the Friday, knowing you're going to get it accepted, an extra 5 million, and then you're trying to go, well, if you won't accept 20 million, how does 20 million plus 5 million add-ons? You could have just done that in the first place. Do you see any logic behind it, or is it just stupid?
It's probably just bad timing from Palace. I know Eze is getting closer and closer to the exit door, and I think they're just looking to replace. And I think, realistically, if they had, any strategy about them, they probably should have done it earlier, as you say. But give and take, football happens, and they've rocked up trying to pay your release clause once it's ended, and now you hold the power. They're gonna receive a decent amount of money for Eze, and you should be like, well, we know you've got the money. Cough up, we want this. We put it in his release clause, not wanting someone to come and pay for it, and no one has, and now we hold the power. So if you want him, it's going to cost you 35 million. And just hold the power that way. That's what I think you should do as a club, personally, because if they're losing someone out someone like Eze, they're going to have to replace him, and they're going to have to cop up.
Yeah, exactly, and if that's their main priority target, then that's where it is. I mean, as it says here, it was 30 million, I think, but it wasn't all up front, and they wanted to do it in installments. See, that's what I mean. If you're going to do that, okay, it's a game, but on Football Manager, if you've got someone who's valuing someone at 50 million, you try and go 35 and then 15 over brackets. Surely, if you're Palace, you kind of go, and we've got European football. We've just won two bits of silverware in our club's history. We're on the up. Maybe start thinking like Leicester were during their little hot streak in the Premier League, and kind of go, okay, well, we'll give you 30 million, and to sweeten the pot, we'll give you 5 million if we make Europa League football, which they got absolutely, by the way, scammed out of it. It's an absolute disaster. It's horrendous what's happened to them. But you know what I mean? I didn't want to bring up flashbacks for Palace, but you know what I mean? Make the incentive so Leicester then kind of not lose the power, because he is their player. They've got no reason to sell unless there's something in within the club that wouldn't surprise me. We're not being told about as fans with Todd, but that's the whole different show for a whole different day. But if we kind of then go, well, we do only have a week and a half, and if we're going to have to replace him, and maybe Winks, who I'm going to get onto again later, as I said, is going to go, we're suddenly short on midfielders. We now need to maybe think logically about this offer. If Palace kind of give us more than bang for our buck, he's their player by Tuesday. That's just where I'm at. But hey ho, I've delayed it as long as I can. Asa, then you want to stick around for my rant if you want Winks out. I'm going to let you go shortly. I suppose I should let you have your shining moment. Talk us through your feelings just before and then obviously after the goal. Because obviously just before that moment, we were throwing the sink, the toilet bowl. We were throwing everything we had in our locker room at you, and we just couldn't break you down for a second time. At what point were you happy to take the point? And was there ever a point in that where you thought, actually, we can go and get the winner that you ended up doing? And then obviously the goal.
I don't think at any point, like when it got to the stage where, you're 1-0 up at home and you're wanting to stay, resolute, and Iverson pulls out that amazing save, and you think, I'd be gutted at this stage to, just come away with a point. It's been such a good performance, especially in the first half. And then when it goes to 1-1, I'm thinking, it's the same old as last season. We played well, and the result's just not gone for us, which happened in more so than not, where, you know, we picked up so many draws, which quite comfortably could have been wins. Like, take this for last season, you know, if we played the same game, it's probably going to end up 1-1. And that's 2 points dropped in that sense. So, yeah, I thought, you know, it's going to stick 1-1. Leicester are going to be on top. I just really hope North End don't sit in too deep. And then, you know, a Leicester player builds up the confidence, especially like Monga, and tries to, you know, bend one in from, you know, 30 yards out if given the opportunity. And I felt that might be the case. But once you started throwing the kitchen sink at it and it wasn't especially working, I noticed that we kept Osmaic high up the pitch, and normally we normally have, you know, full 11 behind the ball just to like be resolute and stuff. But, you know, when the ball obviously broke to Osmaic, I was thinking, just at least give us a bit of a breather, get us up the pitch, give us 10-15 seconds. And then obviously Small came up, and you know, he's coming up 1-on-1. And for me, I was thinking he's having an exceptional game here, Thierry Small. You know, he's been brilliant against Fatawa, and he's broke down the line. And you just see Osmaic makes these runs, and, you know, he gets in these positions where, you know, he probably should have buried it to make it 2-0, and then he got in this position again. And I'm thinking, you know, if you can put the ball just into him in the right area, he's going to score, because his first time finishing's superb as a player for Preston standards. And when the ball came across and I saw he had the chance, to me there was only really one option. That's hitting the back of the net. And yeah, the thing is with Osmaic is he's an absolute idiot. Realistically, you know, the stuff on and off the pitch, he's a complete muppet, but he's a really good striker, which is probably what you hate about him. You know, he's actually a really good striker at this level. So, you know, he's a bit of a lunatic, but he gets in these positions, and once he got in that position, and, you know, once I saw the ball that was going to him, I was thinking, you know, we've done this. And then obviously the ball hits the back of the net, and it's complete and utter, you know, ecstasy at North End. And then once that goes in, and you know, the Leicester players realise and have the same mentality of, oh, it's happened again, it's like last season. Although you're throwing a kitchen sink at it, I felt comfortable. You know, we brought an extra man on at the back and just really, you know, ground out the win in the end up, which I felt we were deserving of. So, but yeah, I only felt like if it was gonna, you know, be a goal, I felt like it'd be Leicester's, unless we did what we did and, you know, keep Osmaic high up the pitch, win the ball high up, and see what he can do. Because realistically, he can win you games, as seen by there. But yeah, I didn't expect it, but once the ball's come into him, you know, nothing's really going to stop him from getting a shot on target at least.
Yeah, and the most annoying / worrying thing for Leicester is nobody was going to stop him at the back line, because the only man within 2 yards of him, unfortunately, is a man in his mid-30s. It wasn't me, but it was Yannick Vestergaard, and that is a player who I think at times has got unnecessary stick. I was a very big critic of him, especially when we were trying to loan him out during our first relegation season and he wouldn't go. Some things are, you regret saying it. And if I think back to it and the situation he was being put on, it wasn't fair on him. But he does cop a lot of stick, because when we went to that high line, it just didn't suit him. Now and for me, I felt like if there was an option on the bench, which there was in Ben Nelson, we should have been putting him on there, because even though Ben Nelson's a tall lad and probably still not, he's younger, first of all, so he's bound to be quicker than Vestergaard is, and he probably just gets stuck into him and brings him down. And he might give away a free kick and get a yellow card, you know, but in that moment in the game when we're thinking, let's nick the point, let's rob Preston blind, I'd rather see that than someone. And to be fair to him, he was, despite being very slow, busting a gut to try and stop goal scorer, whose name I'm not going to butcher and try and pronounce, but he was trying to catch him, he just couldn't do it, and then there was only one outcome, and it is. And again, if you look, there was a few worrying things from the game in its entirety, but if you want to look at another worrying thing, I, like yourself, thought that's it. That is the game. It is done. And sadly, it was for Leicester fans. You won the game 2-1. You've said you got Sheffield Wednesday next. Are you going to be more positive about Sheffield Wednesday next?
Ipswich.
I know you said Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday. You was on that. I was like, Ipswich next. They've not been too brilliant in the start of the season. Positive now after doing what you've done to Leicester?
I think it's probably the best time to play them. It's at home as well, coming off a big win against yourselves. I think realistically, yourselves in Ipswich will be right up there this season. And obviously, it's early days. I think, you've got loads of time to be able to turn it around. I know Ipswich can, pick up a few more points as well, and they'll be up there. But if there's ever a time, North for Preston to, get potentially nick another win at home, with the atmosphere that the way it was at Saturday, coming off a win that was unexpected and, maybe going into the unexpected again. I think for North End, I don't think there's really a better time to be playing, the bigger sides at home, especially because, you're going to have the fans on side. You're going to have a bit more oomph behind you. And who knows, if you can nick another goal early on, then it could turn into a completely different game. And, if North End can pick up 7 points from the first 3 games of QPR away, Leicester at home and Ipswich at home, you're thinking, we've had people, including myself, there's been a lot of pundits predicting North End to finish 23rd this season. And if you're able to pick up 7 points in the first 3 games, I think you'll be much higher up in mid-table than being in a relegation scrap. So as long as we can pick up as many points as we can at the start of the season, because as I say in April, in the other show, the wheels really do come off. So we need to get as many points as we can up until then. And, I don't think there's a better time to be playing, quote unquote, the big boys than in a transition period from the Premier League and now North End on a high after Leicester.
Well, there you go. You are a changed man. Your positive attitude knows no bounds anymore. Unfortunately for Leicester fans, I think the atmosphere, which is thick and you can almost feel it between the fans and what you're seeing on the pitch. We have newly promoted Charlton away. So at least if Leicester do lose, they get to ruin my weekend early because it's 12:30 kickoff. Make sure if you're new, you subscribe to this channel because Chris will be back for the watch along for that, bright and early for that one. So yeah, if you are wanting to see Leicester's downfall and misery potentially continue, just give us a subscribe just to make us feel better about it. Ollie, you have been brilliant as always. You've done the preview and now you've been back for the review show. Just let everybody know where it is they can follow you and maybe go and check out your content because you did some stuff prior and obviously for this game as well.
Yeah, so it's the Butt Pie Podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or all good reputable streaming sites. On X and Twitter of @the Butt Pie Podcast. We're going to be recording Wednesday, so it'll come out on Thursday. We'll do a full debrief on our thoughts of obviously the North End Leicester game, and then obviously the preview towards our game against Ipswich. Obviously, you may want to tune out against that. But yeah, if you do want to keep us in your thoughts and memories for the next time we play, maybe it might be more than twice. Maybe we meet ourselves in the cup. We'll be here at the Butt Pie Podcast.
There you go. Go and check him out. Do go and give his podcast a listen. It'll be brilliant. If this is anything to go by being on here, he's been a brilliant guest twice. So definitely go and check him out on all your favourite podcast platforms. Thanks very much, Ollie, for coming on. And now I can say this with genuine, obviously, good luck for the rest of the season until we meet again, that is.
Cheers, Brad. See you later, Rob.
See you later. All right, that was Oh, no, I pressed the wrong thing there. That was Ollie. He is a very happy Preston fan. And like I said, go and check out his podcast. They do wonderful work. Go and give it a listen as I try and do this. We are Chrisless today. So Chrisless, right? You heard me right, Chrisless. But that doesn't mean that I don't have my 1v1 YouTube threatening fight towards Jordan Blackwell. We are going to do the player reviews with or without Chris. I've got them here. Let me know in the comments. Do you agree? Put the player's name, give a rating, go along with me. This is where things get easy. Yeah, I mean, Eze, I've read your comment out, but you're going to be getting off where I go to on here. Let's start from the top, shall we? Jakub Stolarczyk, Jordan Blackwell. Okay, he says he left himself in no man's land for a dreadful decision to come to meet the long ball when he didn't get many chances to redeem himself, only stopping Osmajic from making it 3-1 late on. He did take a few good high claims, though, and his quick, accurate throws set up a few City attacks. They should have made more. He gave them a 5, and I have to kind of agree, which makes me feel a bit ill in the mouth, agreeing with Jordan Blackwell. But in fairness, that goal was horrendous. It was Danny Ward, prime Danny Ward. But I felt he did redeem himself a bit better. He was, he didn't let it affect him. He caught well. He didn't really have too much to do after that goal, apart from at the end where he had to pick the ball out of his net again. And he settled down. I did give him a 5 because there wasn't anything you could do about the second goal. The first goal was absolutely crazy, but I am going to give Jakub a 5. James Justin. Well, it only took one player for me and Mr. Blackwell to disagree on. Says James Justin, defensively he was strong in the first half, but wobbled early in the second period, and was beaten by Small for pace. He was beating Small for... There's a joke in there somewhere, but my brain just scrambled it. Going forward, he was effective at picking up decent positions and nearly had an assist crossing low for Fatu's chance that was brilliantly saved by Iverson. Yeah, that was a great save, wasn't it? He gave him a 6. Now, maybe I felt a bit sorry for Justin in the second half because I didn't think he was great. He got torn to shreds. He showed another highlight reel as to why Justin can't play on the right. He was absolutely absent going forward in getting the ball out on the wing. It wasn't until the changes were made and we put him out on the left that he became the Justin of old. A bright spark, got forward, cut inside, helped create space and freedom for Monga to get onto the ball and do what he was doing so well for us. And then I think actually, ironically, for me, it was a turning point in the match. I think the momentum was with us. We'd obviously got back level and we were looking to go forward and be ever aggressive and find that winning goal. I think we had Preston up against the back wall and then Justin got injured. Justin got injured now. There's talks of injury. It could be long-term, which obviously means an end to the potential Leeds United move that looked on the cards, if I was to believe. But I thought it was a 4. And then I think maybe because he got injured, I felt bad for him. I gave him a 5. But yeah, for me, Justin was not great in the first half. It was pretty bad. And I think the second half actually saved him because he was like a 2 or a 3 in that first half. But I did give him a 5 in the end. Now then, Caleb Okoli, a man who's been heavily linked with AC Milan a day or two before the game. A man that I would call as Redemption Arc FC. Some players like Thomas and Samare have pushed on from that. And Caleb Okoli seems to be that. He seems to have been brought out of the wilderness from Marti Cifuentes. And Jordan says this, Will Smith and Osmajic were tough opponents to battle against. Okoli did a decent job and was much improved from last weekend. He was strong when he had to be and passed reasonably well too. Give him a 6. And again, feels a bit weird this, but I agree with him. I think he was strong. He was easily our best centre back. He was He was probably our best backline player throughout the game. He got his head on everything, or pretty much everything. It was fairly solid. And if we get to September the 1st or 2nd, I don't know if the window closes on the 1st or is closed by the 1st, but whenever it's closed, if we can get to that date with him still a Leicester City player, I think that'll be a big coup for Leicester, because he looked like one of the few bright sparks on the pitch that was actually wearing the shirt with pride. And I actually gave him a 6. I was actually tempted to give him a 7. But there's only one player that's scoring higher than a 7, and I can't just give it to a Coley. But we'll get to him. We'll get to the higher than a 6 player shortly. Now then, Yannick Vestergaard. For the most part, he was very good. His raking passes, finding the wingers, and his well-timed last-ditch tackles, getting City out of trouble. But he let Osmaic peel off him for the winner and lacked the pace to deal with the Preston's late counters. He gave him a 6. I gave him a 5, and now I feel harsh, because to be fair, I just said I didn't blame him for the goal, the second goal, because it's not his fault he's got no pace. It's not his fault he's now in his mid-30s. He shouldn't have been in that position. Like I said, I feel like Ben Nelson should have been on for them final 10 or 8 minutes or so, or whatever it was, before the goal. Especially when you're pushing that high line further and further up. Someone like a Yannick Vestergaard, I said on the post-match, it'd be like asking Wes Morgan to chase down. It's never going to happen. So I give him a 5, but I'm actually going to change it to a 6. Okay. Sorry. I had a bit of gas then. It's because I'm agreeing with Jordan so much. It's not good for my health. Skip through the advert. Luke Thomas. He was caught out by the long ball down the wing time and time again, and didn't look comfortable defending one-on-ones either. He did do well to lean on Osmaic and put him off from scoring a tap-in the second half. In the second half, though, he gave him a 4. I give Thomas 3. I don't think he was good. He didn't make driving runs forward, and that's something I think we miss. And I know people put your pitchforks away, but I'm about to say Christensen does that for us. I know. Put your pitchforks away. Stop sending your letters of complaint. Stop. But I'm just making a comparison. Christensen would at least have offered the overlap. I know he's not fit or something's going on there. But I felt Thomas lacked that attacking presence and was all over the place, to the point that our goalkeeper felt he needed to have a rush of blood and try and clear up for his mistake for the first goal. I think he was missing. He has off games. They all do. There's a few that did. 4 from Jordan is a 3 from me. Wasn't his best game. Now, Chris will say that this is my love child. But Boubakary Samare, for 40 minutes, he was barely involved, failing to produce the dominant midfield performance City required. Not wrong. But he got better as the game went on, passing forward well and carrying the ball powerfully. I feel that Cifuentes needs to register things that other managers didn't with Boubakary, and that is when we go high pressing and we get bodies up front, Bouba is the player that you need in and around the box, kind of like a certain number 6 that we've lost this season to Besiktas. We need someone who can be at the centre of that centre circle and ping a pass. That's when Samare comes alive and plays well. Jordan gave him a 5, and I gave him a 5 as well, because I do agree. In that first half, there was a few, but Bouba was on that list of players that for the first 35, 40 minutes, what the hell are you doing? You're not offering us anything. But I feel that the second half formation and tactic change, we saw the Bouba that we've seen, and maybe that's what needs to be taken a note of. As my phone won't scroll up because on these stupid rating things, it won't scroll up. Give me a minute. I'm just trying to get to more. There we go. Right, rant time. I'm going to give you Jordan's rating here. Harry Winks. He was fine, but nowhere near the influential midfield presence he was in the opening week. He looked frustrated by some of his teammates' decision-making. 5. I'm going to take that report. It's on my phone, so I'm not actually going to do it. I'm going to imaginary do it, but just think, I don't give a fuck about his performance. Gets a 0, by the way. Gets a 0. Harry Winks, what the fuck, mate? Now, I get it. Ruud van Nistelrooy, your head's gone. I get it. There's some toxicity at the club. And I get that maybe your head's been a little bit turned by talk about elsewhere. But when you put on that fucking Leicester shirt, you put in a performance. And if you're not able to put in a performance, do you know what you do? You know what you fucking do, mate? I tell you what you do. You walk over to the travelling set of fans that some paid hundreds of pounds just to get there, let alone their match day ticket, right? Let alone the cost of getting in through the gates, right? The hundreds of pounds they spent on public transport, the hundreds of pounds it cost to get there, back, stay in a hotel, do it however they did. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Because there is players there that we know or have a funny feeling don't want to be here, right? You're not the only one, Winks. But were they going straight down the tunnel? No, I'm just saying. Call a spade and all that. But people had stick with Wild Face doing it after the Sheffield Wednesday game. But at least he had some justification. Fans booed him. He got jeered and he maybe got a bit up it a little bit. And he felt the need to go, yeah, stick that on you. I'm going to call off and be angry about it for a bit. But I tell you what he did. Whether he was lagging behind or not, whether he was right at the front or not, he went and clapped the away fans. He went and clapped you travelling fans that go to most, if not all, away games and all the home games and everything. Harry Winks was in the taxi. Harry Winks was dressed, ready to leave and get on the coach and go before the round of applause for you travelling fans were gone. That stinks. That attitude reeks, and I want it nowhere near this club. Go and stick him with the under-21s. Go and stick him with the under-18s. Go and stick him with the under-6s. I don't care. Keep him as far away from the first team as physically possible. Tell Valencia they can have him for a pittance and get rid of him. I don't care, right? Because you can get help. If you're not mentally with it, get help. People will help you. There is help at the club available. There is outside sources from the club. Right, if you're not mentally prepared for a game, speak to Cifuentes. I'm sure you'll say, look, Gaffer, my head's not with it. Last season really hurt. The whole fiasco with Ruud still plaguing my mind. I can't get my head in it. I do want to play for Leicester, but I'm not mentally not. I'm a little bit checked out. Can I just have, I'm sure you could have came up with something. I'm sure he could have said these things. I know sometimes it's not easy to talk about anything that's going on, but if it's something personal, if it's something to do with the football club and how he's felt and how he felt he was treated, I'm sure he could have had an arm put round him. He could have spoken to anybody. It didn't even have to be the manager. He could have been the kit man for all I cared. He could have solved the problem. I kind of turned a blind eye to the Huddersfield. Okay. Sometimes players don't celebrate. It's a cup game against League One. We should have gone on to win that game. We didn't, obviously, but at that point, it's like, well, we should be winning anyway. It's nothing special. We should be in front. I know what happened, but I didn't really read too much into his non-celebration. And I didn't try and read too much into his attitude throughout the game, not running, not the Harry Winks of old, not busting a gut to get back, not busting a gut to get forward. He almost kind of went, no, it is Monger. He's a young lad. I'm going to give him a pat on the back for his goal, but I'm not really that interested. And you could see him. He kind of just went, there you go, mate. Done my customary pat on the back. Didn't even look at him. Didn't even put an arm around him. Didn't even give him a little, hey, well done, mate. Great goal. First goal for the club. It was just, like I said, he was down the tunnel. He was back in Leicester, well, probably back in London, knowing him. Right? Get out of that club. Absolute zero. I didn't particularly want him when he first came to the club. I actually remember a Spurs fan saying, would he swap Winks for Maddison? And I said, the only way I'd take Winks is if we were in the Championship. and he had a good season. Grow up, Winks. Grow up. If there's not a big problem, if you're not dealing with something externally, and I'll take it all back if you are. Honestly, I will, because no man should not have someone to talk to if they're suffering with something, externally inside, But if this is just about the football and just about how Rude treated you, grow up, because there's players out there that were treated just as bad as Rude, and they're playing. And they're at least trying to put a shift in and trying to understand this new manager's way of playing and trying to get, the right results for us fans. 0, no, that's it. My rant's over. Done. Moving on. That was fun, wasn't it? That was fun. I actually dignified him with a 2 on his piece of paper, but I thought, no, I'm not going to give him 2 just on performance, because as a person and a player, I'm inclined to agree with what Azza said here. Winks is a spoiled, entitled brat that needs to drop completely out of the squad and banned from training and get rid. Again, if it's something else, then by all means, I will retract what I've just said. I will retract this rant, and I will wish him all the best in trying to get his head right and sorted. But if this is all just, Rude bullied me, Rude said this, we all had your back, Winks. That's the problem. Us fans understood that Rude's request was ludicrous. You've got a new child. But to act like this several weeks afterwards, if it is purely just this, it's just pathetic. And I don't want it at Leicester City. I don't want it on the pitch. I certainly don't want it taking up a space in a squad for Charlton. If it's all just purely down to, I don't want to be at Leicester anymore because Rude hurt my feelings. You had the fans back. You had our support. You had our sympathies. Unless it's anything, like I say, that's internally and in your private life. I'll move on. Bilal El Khanous. He looked frustrated by City's inability to create and so tried to take matters into his own hands, only then to do too much and lose possession. He was still one of City's better players, but that didn't stop him being taken off at half-time. Yeah, and we've seen this with El Khanous. He gave him a 5, by the way, and again, annoyingly. No, I didn't. I didn't agree with him on this one. I didn't agree with him, and maybe I'm being a bit too harsh, but I agree with some of the points that Jordan's making. He tries to do too much. He tries to take the ball by the horns and do it all himself. I think I said on the post-match, he has a little bit of James Maddison, i.e. relegation season with us syndrome. And that is James Maddison felt the need to do everything himself. He wanted to take free kicks, penalties, corners, goal kicks, throw-ins, the whole works. And I get his frustrations. He's an incredible talent, and he's obviously feeling that if the rest of the team aren't going to, click and pull the cart with him, he's not going to be an horse pulling it. Maybe that's why rumours are suggesting that he's like, nah, I was willing to, but not if this is what I'm going to deal with. I want out. And I couldn't blame him. I could not blame him if Palace met a bid tomorrow and he was gone before the transfer window. But I have to judge him with performance. I think he allowed his frustrations to rule through his head. Bit disappointed, and I give him a 3. Now, next one, the winger. We get onto the forward-thinking men here. Abdul Fattah. That's what Jordan said. An off day, he had very little joy against Small, who marks him for pace, and his crosses were often overhit. His shot choice was poor too, albeit he did go close with a goal when sliding in. Gave him a 4. There was some bright spot moments, and again, we have to remember Abdul's been out for 10 months. And even with the recovery and the fitness training, he hasn't kicked the ball in anger for 10 months, and he's had not. I think he's had just shy of 180 minutes of first team football back in it. He's going to be ring rusty. He's going to take a while to get back to the Abdul that we fell in love with when he was on loan with us 2 years ago. He's going to take a while to gel and get back and have that extra yard of pace back into him, and even sometimes some confidence. I think he's almost trying to force the issue with some of the shots he's been taking from the edge of the box, And I think his crossing is just something that he's gonna have his good crosses, his bad crosses, his good days, his bad days. But it was a 4. It was a 4 performance. It wasn't a terrible performance to be down at a 1 or 2 or 3 discussion, but it wasn't. It had too many negatives to go into the halfway stage, if you will. So, again, annoyingly, me and Jordan agreeing a lot here. So, Jordan, are you frustrated the fans? That's one way of putting it, mate. By constantly losing the ball when trying to rip past the man, and annoyed his teammates with his greed too. He was better in deeper role with Daka ahead of him, though, and Jordan gave him a 4. He couldn't cross. He held on to the ball way too long, and when there was actually opportunities where he turned the defender and got forward a bit quicker and moved on the ball a bit quicker in that second half, yeah, he was greedy. He chose to shoot when maybe the one time it was okay to lay it off back to recycle it out to the wing was the better option, or put a pass through the gap to try and pick out, Monga or Daka. I am just going to say, just quickly, the whole Daka are you thing, I'm all for it. I'm all for it if that's how we give Ayew on, because he looks like a player that has to that is instructed to hold up the ball, wait for teammates if necessary, then lay it off. If he's got someone like Daka alongside him, he's already going to have that option. It might not be the best option in a lot of fans' eyes, but it goes there. Nonetheless, I give him a 3, because even the things that you can normally depend on him doing, he didn't do. He didn't win as decent free kicks. He wasn't very good on the ball, so I give him a 3. Now then, Mavididi, we get into the last player of the 11, and I'll quickly run through just the ratings of the substitutes. -1. I wonder if you can see why. He made sure to stay wide and stay in space, making himself an option, while he usually made it to the edge of the box or further. He didn't deliver any dangerous crosses. He lacked support at times, though. 5. Yeah, I have to agree. This is horrible. I don't like doing this. No, I don't like this. I'm agreeing with Jordan Blackwell again on this performance because, look, Ollie called it from a Preston's perspective. We saw it last season, and teams are obviously looking at last season going, that's what we need to do to shut Mavididi down. Put two or three players around him, putting one cutting off the inside, one cutting off his return back route, and one cutting him off down the middle so he can't really burst down the wing and get him behind him, which is something they struggled to contain a certain Monga doing. I think he's one that is going to have to rebuild his confidence. I think he's putting in the effort and he's trying, unlike somebody, but it's just not working for him at the moment. And like, again, Ollie called it as well. I'm sure a few of you have tonight, and I've been saying if he doesn't start getting his act together and start putting in performances, Monga's going to not just become a starter over Mavididi, he's going to become a permanent fixture in the side, and Mavididi's going to have to be the one trying to earn his place back and coming off the bench and trying to impress Cifuentes going forward. I did give him a 5, though, because there was a few times he made some very clever runs and we were just moving the ball too slow, or someone was holding on to the ball and we just seemed to have our heads down. They weren't looking up for these little clever overruns that could have got Mavididi into the space. So it wasn't all his fault. I gave him a 5. Now then, on to the substitutions. Patson Daka, he made some runs, gave Preston defenders more to think about, but didn't really trouble them in any great degree. Again, he wasn't a threat inside the box. He gave him a 5. I gave him a 4. I see the idea there. I see what they're working on. Maybe it's still an idea if we bring in the guy from Benfica that we stick with, but I feel against Charlton we have to go 2 up front, and it could be a system that if we allow it to gel and work, we might actually still see something from Patson Daka. He ran and he was a bit of a nuisance, but nothing more. It was a 4 for me. Now, everybody's favourite person, most people scapegoat, and most people's first swear word comes out their mouth when they hear his name on the team sheet. But Mr. Wout Faes, he stepped out of defence well to intercept high up the pitch, and that kept City on the attack. But when the game got stretched, he wasn't there to help out his defensive teammate Six. This is where having the idea, I can understand that Cifuentes wanted to keep Vestergaard on. The only problem is he didn't keep him dropping back, which is why it didn't work. But we all know Wout Faes is a ball-playing centre-back. He likes to get the ball at his feet, and if he's got space to run into, he's going to run into it. He's made some runs in throughout his Leicester career, which have us oohing and ahhing. Whether you hate him or you love him, it doesn't matter. You have to admit he did make some, tantalising runs at times during his Leicester career to date. And with that, you then have to make sure that the cover's there, because he's not going to make a long busting 70-yard, 80-yard run and then be able to track back and gain ground 30 yards. People were saying, he's there already like that on half an hour. He's 30 yards behind play, and he's just run from the edge of our box to try and catch up. He's not going to be able to catch up. I know he's quick, and he's not that quick. That we have unfortunately got them aspects of David Luiz in him. He thinks he's a centre forward sometimes, and maybe he does overcommit to his commitments in going forward. But yeah, Jordan gave him a 6, and I also gave him a 6. I'm going to save the best till last, because we lost the game. We might as well have something to talk about. Casey, by the way, we're not rating, didn't come on and have long enough to do anything to really give an effect to the game. He gave Hamza a 5. Oh, just as an advert comes up on the phone. Where's his Hamza report? He was fine. There was nothing special, but no mistakes. I think, unfortunately, because he is a defender in the mindset, and he takes that role very literal, we completely got killed on that left side in terms of momentum. Because obviously Justin on that side, and what we were expecting from Thomas was an overlap, was breaking into the half to push the defence back, to push them into areas they weren't comfortable in, to allow Monga and Ayew and others to have that freedom, pocket space. Hams on that side can do a solid job as the defender, but when it came to the other half of the wing-back game, he just didn't have it. However, again, didn't do anything wrong, so I agree. I gave him a 5. I was going to be a bit harsher maybe and give him a 4, but I actually felt he did okay considering the limitations he has in understanding that role. Because obviously he plays in midfield. He's not a natural wing back. Sorry, he's not a natural wing back. It's a role he can do, but obviously it's not his forte. So I can't really hold too much against him. So I give him a 5. Saving the best till last. As I said, Casey doesn't get a rating, wasn't on the pitch long enough, although he did come on, obviously. If it wasn't your man of the match, I want to know what game you were watching. He was my man of the match, it was Chris's man of the match, he was, I think he was Tom and, I would say Wayne, but that might get a report. It was everybody's man of the matches, and he was Alan's man of the match. I'm, of course, talking about Jeremy Monga. And this one I don't mind agreeing with Jordan on. He says, what a talent. He sparked the game into life with his footwork and willingness to take on his man, while his weight of pass was exceptional too. His goal was really well taken as well. He shouldn't be walking off the pitch as a loser. 8. He was my man of the match. He stays the man of the match, and I give him a 9. The biggest, brightest, and one of the very few sparks on that pitch during that 90-minute debacle at Deepdale. Absolutely tons of charisma, tons of belief in his own ability, in what he can and what he's going to do. Not afraid to potentially make a mistake in trying to do what he wants to do and do the best for his team. The period of play where Leicester really dominated was from the second he entered the pitch until up about 5 minutes after Justin probably got injured. And even then, we were still having chances. He was still getting into the byline. He was still putting in dangerous crosses. He created space. He caused chaos. He had the Preston North End defenders backpedaling. You had 2 on him. You had 3 on him. It didn't matter. He wasn't scared to take them on. He wasn't scared to go and win it. And that's why for me it's a 9. It's probably, in fact, it is 2 games into the season. It's the performance of the season from an individual. It was absolutely fantastic. And if anyone thought, well, maybe we're overhyping this at the end of last season, that one is definitely not a performance that was overhyped. Easily 16 years of age, and he's now the youngest ever championship goal scorer. A record, may I add, held by Jude Bellingham before it was broken. Seeing there. Oh no, I'm not video chatting. Sorry, I got distracted. Distracted by a message there. Monga gets a 9, man of the match. Alan's man of the match. And that was Jordan's ratings. Now he doesn't do manager and team ratings, and I'm gonna give the exact same as Alan. Not because I have to. I don't. I could tell you different, but we pretty much were in agreement. I think it doesn't do the manager ratings, but the team rating he gave a 4-2. I gave us a 5. So we weren't too similar. I think Alan felt a bit more disappointed, and he goes again. He sees things that we don't get to see on our completely legitimate streams. I give the manager Cifuentes a 6, which may sound weird in the grand scheme of things, but honestly, for me, I don't think he was that bad. I don't think he got anything wrong. I think he made the right tactical changes. He made the right substitutions to inject new pace into us. You know, it's that expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And some of them players, it felt like he was trying to force to get back into form, to get the thoughts out of their head, get them buying into this thing and really giving their all for the club. Some of them didn't want to budge. That's where they stood. It's a shame, but I give them a 6. Ladies and gentlemen, I have chewed your ear off for 1 hour and 27 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed it at least, and I hope you enjoyed Ollie, the Preston North End fan, being on here as well. It was lovely to have him on. He was great on the preview show. Go and check that out if you haven't already, because he was so positive. And there was a mini quiz on there. Yeah. And obviously he was great on this show tonight, giving us some great information and great thoughts of an away fans. I don't think I'll be back doing a review show. I think Chris will be back to his usual time, but it's been lovely to have you here with us. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you are new, do drop a click on that subscribe button. If you have enjoyed the stream, hit the thumbs up button. Not my thumb, I won't feel it, but click on the little thumbs up button down there and make sure you've got all notifications turned on. And I believe, did he set it up? Did he? Yes. Make sure you're subscribed, because next show is tomorrow, 7 p.m, Fox's Forum. It is the discussion show. That'll be on us. So if you're not subscribed, you'll miss that, won't you? So make sure you're subscribed and you turn notifications on. And if you have enjoyed this stream, hit the like button. I will not be back. Oh, when am I back? I'm back for the preview show with Charlton fan, I think on Thursday or Friday. I'll let you know. I'll speak with Chris and find out. That was a lovely balls up outro, wasn't it? But until next time, hope you've had a wonderful...
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.